Hello and welcome to Your County. I'm Lynne Fitzgerald. Today my guest is Casey Williams. He is the Director of Disaster and Emergency Services for Yellowstone County. I want to welcome you and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's a real important job, isn't it?
Well, it's a very important job. I'm not necessarily a very important person, but it is a very important job. Yes.
Okay. Well, let's go back a little bit. How did you land here? You're from Arkansas?
I am from Arkansas. In 1989, I was a respiratory therapist, and I joined a volunteer fire department and fell in love with the volunteer fire service and have been firefighter since 1989. I did about 10 years in law enforcement as well. Through a series of major disasters in Arkansas, where I became an emergency manager there, both in my hometown and across the state, the more I did it, the more I fell in love with it, and wound up getting a master's degree in emergency management, and was at my fire department where I was the fire chief one day, and I had already decided I wanted to retire to Montana. And
how'd that work out?
I did the whole what's happening in Montana, and as it turns out, the job for the DES director here in Yellowstone County opened the day that I had done it. I applied, and 6 weeks later, I moved to. 6 weeks after an internet search, I moved to Montana and got this job, and I've absolutely loved it ever since.
Well, apparently it was meant to be.
It absolutely was meant to be. I've been a Montanan all my life. It just took 50 years for me to figure it out.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we're glad you're home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there are some changes coming up in 2024 this year. One is the emergency alert system. Do I have that right?
You do. So since 2018, which was 1 year before I got here, the county has been on a system called Code Red, which is an opt-in emergency alerting system. The county and city leadership, along with the public safety, law enforcement, fire, public works, all in a committee that we call the Emergency Management Advisory Committee, asked that we look at a different platform so that maybe we could have better success, get better opt-in. So we are transitioning to a system called Everbridge.
Everbridge, okay.
That's the name of it.
Right.
I think the name that everybody will hear will be Alert Yellowstone.
Okay.
It will be an opt-in system where our citizens can say, yes, I would like to get these type of notifications. It's very similar to Code Red. That system also offers the county and the city the ability to use that internally to help them message county and city employees. It will allow public works and things to send notifications out on street closures, maybe some utility issues,
sure.
water.
Okay.
It's a little bit more robust than what we've used with Code Red in the past, and I think our citizens are going to like it a little bit better.
Well, now, Code Red, which we have up on the screen here, there's a logo for it. That's an opt-in. So you go online, you enter your information.
Yes. You enter your information, and you say, I would like for you to let me know about certain addresses that you want monitored, and if you have the app on your phone, it'll follow you around on your phone. That sounds creepy, but what I mean by that is, if you enter into an area that's having an emergency, your phone will alert and let you know that that's happening where you are.
So this is a national.
Yes, so it's a national thing. Yellowstone County has two types of alerting that we do. We have the opt-in alerting, which you would get through Everbridge when we roll that out. And I have the federal emergency alerting system, which is called IPAWS, the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. Okay. All of the cell phones today that are made have IPAWS built into them.
Oh. We don't have to opt in, we just have to have the phone on.
You don't have to opt in. The IPAWS alerting will allow us to send critical emergency alerts, but you may not get local alerts.
Sure, okay.
Like this area of town is closed, or the water system is down, or something like that. So my recommendation is opt into the Everbridge, the Alert Yellowstone app. Put in whatever addresses you want monitored. And when I say monitored, what I mean is if there's a disaster, an emergency, a severe weather alert, or anything that would affect that address, your phone or your email or your text, however you want to be notified, will go off and let you know that that's happening. And then, like I said, the other benefit is it will also monitor, if you want it to, wherever you are. So if you drive into or enter, or if you're in an area away from home that there's an emergency alert or something significant, you'll know that you're in the area that's being affected.
Now, you say that this will also be utilized by local law enforcement.
Yes.
So let's say you put in your street address, would you be notified of a nearby house fire, for instance, or a traffic crash?
You could. So law enforcement and fire notify the emergency management department, our department, and say, we would like you to notify these people in this area that something's going on. So if they had recently we've heard of barricaded subjects, and we've heard of people doing violence with weapons, and the police have to come in and cordon off an area.
Right.
This allows us to let you know this is happening in your area, and it gives instructions like shelter in place, don't come here, evacuate, whatever. We also have, of course, a very busy train system. We have 3 refineries in our county. So if we have something that happens there, it would be able to notify the people that may be affected by any hazardous material stuff. So it's everything: floods, weather, utility shutdowns, traffic, big events. We can set it up so that when you go to, let's say, the fair, you can scan a barcode with your phone, and then you get all the fair information through this system too, if that's what you want.
Some good news.
Yes, so it's not all bad. There's some good. It's a way that the government, for the cities and the counties, can interact with the public and share information.
Yeah. Now, would Laurel PD also be included in this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so anything in Yellowstone County?
Anything in Yellowstone County. Yes.
All right. Are other counties also adapting the new system?
Oh, absolutely.
The whole state?
Most of the counties in Montana have some type of an alerting system. They either have Code Red, they have Everbridge, they have Rave. There's 20 or 30 of those type of systems that are available. We chose Everbridge because the user interface is easier. It allows us to do more. And already, both of our hospital systems use it for all of their employees and internal. So we're able to kind of work with our healthcare sector and some of those others, so that we can inform the public quicker, better, safer, I guess, if you will.
Now, devil's advocate here. What if we have an internet outage?
If you have an internet outage, then emails aren't going to work.
No.
But text messages will.
Oh, so
And
we
phone
have the
calls
option
will.
of getting text messages too?
Yes, text messages, emails, social media alerts, telephone calls. There's, I think, there's 26 different ways we can send messages.
Okay, all right, well, that's good to know.
I'm not techie enough to know every single pathway, but there's 26 different methods to pass on that information. So an internet outage doesn't really hurt us. And the emergency management department has satellite.
Oh.
So even if our local grid goes down,
Right.
I have access to satellite, so I can send text messages and phone calls even without our local grid.
Okay. During your tenure here, what has been the largest disaster?
Well, my goodness. I guess the largest disaster was the 2022 flood along the Yellowstone River that devastated, Stillwater, Carbon Park. Yellowstone County came out of it relatively unscathed.
Yeah.
So that was probably the largest natural disaster. The biggest disaster we've had, of course, is COVID. The economic.
How does that impact your office?
So my office is responsible for supporting and managing any disaster, and that includes the healthcare stuff. So even with
Wow.
COVID, we are the liaison between the local, the state, and the federal. So when the hospitals become overwhelmed, it's actually my job to work with the hospitals to come up with ways of extra capacity. We brought in about $40 million worth of equipment, millions and millions of dollars worth of federal aid in the sense of healthcare workers and healthcare teams, and the National Guard built out an alternative overflow hospital at the Expo Center.
Yeah.
We did sheltering. So I'm also part of the Unified Health Command in Yellowstone County. So that was a big deal, and the economic and social impacts of COVID we'll feel for
A long time.
a long time to
Yeah.
come. But we're very intimately involved with the healthcare, hospitals, public health. So it doesn't matter whether it's a disease, a tornado, an earthquake, a hazmat.
Yeah, and I was thinking too about the train derailment near Laurel.
The train derailment, that
Yeah.
another very large emergency.
Yeah.
When the train derailed, we did a couple of things. We have protocols in place. We have a thing called the Source Water Protection Plan. So as soon as the train derailed and I got the phone call, we made all of our regulatory notifications that were required to do by law. Then we notified all of the ditch companies and water companies and sewer companies that there was the potential for hazardous materials getting into their intakes. So they implemented their emergency plans. And then Stillwater County asked for us to come and do mutual aid assistance with them.
Okay.
And we have mutual aid agreements with most of eastern Montana counties.
Okay.
And we work very closely with Stillwater, Carbon, Muscle, all of the contiguous counties that we have here. We help each other out quite a bit.
Well, so after the disaster is over, what is your role then? And again, I'm thinking about the train derailment because that certainly had and probably still has some lingering effects.
It does. So the train derailment doesn't really affect my office as much as it does the Stillwater office.
Okay.
And the reason is the majority of the problem was in Stillwater County. But I'll use anything like that. So let's say we have a major flood.
Okay.
Once the life safety issues are taken care of and we make sure that people are not in immediate danger and harm's way, and the water has receded, most people think, okay, flood's over. But our job is really just beginning because it's the recovery process. The emergency management's primary role is to make sure the community can recover as quickly, as safely, and cheaply as we possibly can. So when we have major disasters, and we've had 3 federally declared disasters in the last 5 years here in Yellowstone County, and an example of how long it takes, the flood of 2022, we're still doing paperwork on that today. We're still doing projects to help mitigate a flood in the future from that today. The next flood disaster that happened, which was this last year during the spring, we had about a month's worth of rain, and that was a federally declared disaster. We're still working with those.
Was there flooding involved in that? Rainfall in June?
Absolutely there was, yes.
Okay.
We had, especially in Billings and in Laurel, there was quite a bit of infrastructure that was damaged with storm drains, with street washouts, with culverts being washed out,
Yeah.
things like that. A couple of bridges got significantly damaged. So emergency management, my job is not only to make sure that we're ready to respond,
Right.
and we have responders that do that. We have fire and EMS and public works and police that go make sure that our citizens are taken out of harm's way. But as soon as that's over, then it's pretty much the emergency management working with the local government, the state and the federal, and all of those resources that come in to help rebuild, get everything back and get us back on our feet again.
So you don't actually get to leave the office and say, well, there goes another day. We can wrap this up.
No, it is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. So growing up, and I don't know if we still do, there was an alarm that would go off occasionally in town.
Yes.
Not a whistle. What am I trying to say
They
here?
were the
A
public
siren?
alert sirens, yes.
A siren. Okay.
That is a leftover from the Cold War.
Oh, my.
Originally, the sirens were put in for their original intent was air raids and
Yeah, sure.
if there was a nuclear event that would happen, it was, and the purpose of those, even as they evolved, was if you were outdoor and you heard the siren, that the purpose is to tell you go inside and turn on your television or your radio and find out what's going on.
Okay.
In Yellowstone County, there was enough of those sirens to cover approximately 21 square miles of a 2,700 square mile county. And they didn't give you any information. And they were so old that we couldn't fix them because they didn't make any of the parts. So
Right. Eventually, people just started ignoring them, didn't they?
most people started ignoring them.
Because you think, oh, it's a test.
It's a
or-
test. And for in defense, in Montana, in Yellowstone County, those sirens never went off to alert the public of any emergency. And when you had the tornado here, I believe it was in 2010 or 11,
10.
over Father's Day, those sirens sounded 45 minutes after the tornado was over.
Okay.
So those sirens never, ever alerted our public to anything, ever. So when the commissioners made the decision to decommission them because the cost of keeping them operational was
Yeah.
prohibitive, and it didn't actually alert anybody to anything, they went with the more modern type of alerting, both with the iPause and with, in that case, Code Red. And you can reach a whole lot more people that way than you could with the sirens.
Right. Imagine there are still people who do not have cell phones, though.
There are,
Yeah.
but there's very few people that don't have some means of.
Would it ring a landline?
Yes, it rings. We have all the landlines.
Okay. So if you don't have a cell phone,
If
you
you don't
still
have a cell phone, it's still a landline. If you don't have a computer, now there's nothing is 100%, right?
Right.
So there's no way we can reach everybody. But when we do send those alerts out, especially if we send out an iPause alert, that goes, you've seen it on television. This is a test of the emergency alerting
Yes.
system, the EAS. I know in media y'all are familiar with that.
Yeah.
That triggers that. So I can send an EAS alert and it'll go over the radio, it'll go over the television. We can call you, text you, email you.
Okay.
So pretty much we can reach well over 99% of the
Yeah, that's
population.
pretty good.
Whereas the sirens were reaching less than 1% of the population.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't have any information. You just heard a siren going off, so
Yeah.
you didn't know what was going on.
Well, the very term emergency means it's sudden, it's unexpected. How do you train for that?
Oh man, there are so. Well, one, I've been training for 35 years.
Right.
We have to go through so many exercises and trainings and education and continuing education, and we train with the fire department, with the airport, with public works, with the EMS system, with the hospitals. We train with the refineries multiple times a year. There's not a month that goes by that myself or your emergency management coordinator, Anne Marie Overcast, who also works in our office, one or both of us are in some type of a training to prepare for or mitigate or respond to monthly. It is nonstop. We're required to do it a few times a year, but we probably do that 12 to 15 times a year.
Well, in the event of the pandemic, obviously that was very unexpected. It crept up. Was there training in place for that situation?
There was. So in the healthcare sector, we have trained and talked about pandemics or major disease outbreaks for years. I don't think anything could have prepared anybody for the political implications of COVID.
Very
so,
true.
So
Yeah.
we had the healthcare emergency, which the hospitals, public health, DPHHS, CDC, NIH, we all trained together on how would we deal with if we need to do mass sheltering, and when we need to do mass vaccinations, or we have capacity overrun plans for hospitals when we have too many of those. I think what really hurt us with COVID was it was so politicized that we weren't expecting that, and it lasted so long. And I think over the years, one of the things we've lagged behind on is we train and we plan and we do all of this, but we haven't taken into consideration the evolution of media
Yes.
and the global, rapid, almost instantaneous exchange of information, whether it's true or not.
There's the hook.
And there's the hook. So with COVID as the prime example,
Right.
the immediate healthcare, the real healthcare issues that we were dealing with really weren't dealt with very poorly. The capacity in the hospital, we had plans for how we're going to deal with the patients and things like that. What we didn't do, and I don't think this is Yellowstone County, I think this is across the nation, we weren't prepared for the politics of the media surrounding something as global and as massive as COVID was.
How do you combat that? Let's say for the next time. I mean, now, round
Well, you
one.
learn, right?
Right,
So,
yeah.
so we learn. We do things like put in place Everbridge or Code Red or Alert Yellowstone, so that we try to get truthful, factual
Right.
data out faster.
People can always trust this site. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
If anything ever comes across there that
Is there any
falls somebody's-
opportunities for that to be hacked?
Well, I guess with anything, it's possible for it to be hacked.
Right.
But there's a lot of security walls and measures to keep it, and it's the people who have access to send the messaging is very well controlled.
Good.
But nothing's
I know.
nothing's impervious to being hacked. And then on the iPause system, it's even more controlled. So even if I create a message and I send it out, it goes electronically to federal agencies that vet the message quickly right before it goes out to make sure that we're not. Hawaii was a really good example. They sent an iPause message. They were training.
Oh.
And it accidentally went across as a real thing when they thought missiles were coming into Hawaii.
Oh dear.
So that was a mistake. But since then, they learned and they've changed how you test that system so that you don't make those mistakes
Right.
again. Nothing's perfect, but it would be very difficult and very purposeful for somebody to do that. It would
Oh
be
yeah. Absolutely.
It'd take a lot of effort.
Well, now I know that you do some training exercises that involve civilians, right? Do you get people volunteer to come in and
Absolutely.
be a patient or an accident victim or whatever? If somebody wants to do that, how do they get in touch? How do they get their name in the hat?
So one of the best ways is to come to our LEPC meetings, which is the Local Emergency Planning Commission meetings. We're changing those, so starting in January, they'll be at the Stillwater building on the third floor at the Board of County Commissioners office. That's the second Wednesday of every month, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. They go for about an hour.
Okay.
We have different volunteer organizations in and around Montana and Yellowstone County. I'll name some of them, like Team Rubicon, which is a not-profit international large organization that goes and helps people in disasters. We have Red Cross, we have the United Way, we have the Salvation Army, we have any number of large religious organizations that help. All of those organizations work with our community partners to form what we call the COAD, the County Organizations Active During Disasters. And we utilize those volunteers regularly for some of our exercises.
Okay.
I'm also putting together, and it'll be a while, we're trying to get a CERT program going here, which is the Community Emergency Response Team training and education. That'll probably be later, maybe late summer, early fall before we get that kicked off, and that would be a good way.
All right. Well, we've run out of time, but I want to thank you for being here.
My pleasure, always.
And encourage folks to hop onto your website and
Yes.
get signed up for the emergency alert system. The
Very
new one.
important. If you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
And you can't make good decisions for your own health, safety, or those that you care about if you're not informed. So
There you go. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing all the information with us. And I want to thank you for joining us. We will see you next time on Your County.